Welcome back, team, to a solo episode of the Average Jacks podcast, which has been a while, I believe. I'm trying to actually think of when the last time that I did one of these was, and I think it was probably when I went to the engine room and sort of first moved into there, and that was, it's got to be over a year ago, probably. Fucking hell, what's happened in a year that you probably don't already know. But yeah, I mean, got married, moved into a new studio, which is sort of what today's podcast is about, and hence why it's just little old me back in the box room. But yeah, I've sort of come on today because there was an expectation and a pressure that I set on myself to make sure that I reached 100 by the end of the year. And the more that I think about it, and obviously guests dry up, and now you'll be wondering why some of the episodes have been coming back into, the famous box room, is because the studio which I'm using just isn't available over the summertime. Fear not, the studio will be back in September. Hopefully we've got a couple of guests lined up and booked in for around June in the studio, but that'll be it. And I suppose what the update is really is there's been sort of like a difficulty with myself thinking about that, of like, do I continue with the lesser standard, if you could say it's a lesser standard? Excuse me. And I've sort of had to like reflect and be like, stop being a pussy about it, because to do this you have to be consistent. And yeah, for people who are, there's not been an episode now for like 2 weeks, and a fear of mine is I'm not up there. I'm not on the forefront of people's minds for the most part, and consistency is a big thing, and that's a reason that I wanted the 100 episodes by the end of the year. Because a little insight into having a podcast, most podcasts don't make it past episode 3. I believe the percentages are super low past that point, and we're on like, this will be episode 70. Again, it's a solo one, it's not without a guest, and it'll be very quick and brief, and I won't try and bore you to tears too much. But sometimes I think it's good that you get an insight to who I am and what I'm doing, because for a lot of the time, although I try and interject, probably the wrong word, but I try and provide in the conversations that I do have with the guests, is the reason that I'm getting these guests on is because I'm interested in them, and hopefully you guys are interested in them. And I just want them to tell their story and their journey and be able to provide something to you and to me that is going to be beneficial for your everyday life. And there's been a lot of change recently with the podcast and me as a podcaster. Yeah, I mean, at what point can you call yourself a podcaster? I mean, 70 episodes surely isn't enough to say you're a podcaster now, when you've done 70 episodes with a lot of people, and you're in this environment now where you have a studio, you have a crew, an excellent crew, who have made the production of the podcast 10 times better, 100 times better than it ever was, and do things that I could only ever dream of doing. So yeah, I've sort of like just got to bite down on the gum shield and keep plodding through. So there will be episodes coming over the summer. There isn't. It's not over. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sort of going to become this seasonal podcaster, because I don't think that's the point. There are people lined up. There's some interesting guests lined up. We've got one coming in a couple of weeks with a gentleman from America, which is pretty cool. And yeah, the aim is to just keep going what we're going. And the changes have been good. There's a new website. Shout out web designer Joe Baker, who has been on the podcast and will be coming on again. He's the guy who sorted like the rebrand out, the new website, the newsletter's coming back, which was sort of before the podcast. For those guys that don't know, there was a newsletter, The Queue, which was just a weekly newsletter where I'd sort of be like a book recommendation, a podcast recommendation, and just talk about like habits and routines, which is what the foundation of the podcast is. Do you know what I mean? Some of you guys are probably new listeners and haven't trudged back to episode 1 when I was with John Cunningham. Shout out John, my boy. talking about why I've done this. So maybe it is a good time to sort of refresh the new subscribers and the new listeners, because it's very easy to get caught up in numbers and analytics and views, etc., and sort of feel like you're not doing something. But then, like yesterday, I literally had a lad reach out to me from school who I've not seen for, showing my age here, let's work it out, 14 years. Probably not seen this guy in 14 years, and he commented on the podcast on the YouTube saying, class, well done, like, really helped. And that is without me sounding like I'm blowing my own trumpet and like, oh, there's a shameless plug about how well it's going. But like, that is literally why I'm doing it. Like, the point of this podcast is to help people. Obviously, monetize it. That's not English. Monetization would be great. And I've had conversations with guests who are like forefront in the business world. I've got friends who have their own business and they run these things. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's secondary. Hopefully, it gets to a point where it can provide an income for me. But again, the values and the core of this podcast and what the book was. If you didn't know, I wrote a book, not very well, but it did okay. And the newsletter was just to provide people an insight to other people's lives, because I can't tell you how beneficial the podcast has been to me. Just meeting these people, because like I've said on the podcast numerous times, is that you don't particularly get to have these conversations with people on a one-to-one basis in the real world. You've got phones, you've got other commitments. Like to actually sit down with someone for an hour and a half and just chew the fat with them and just get an insight to their life is incredible. And it provides things that motivate me. So my logic of that is that surely it motivates others and helps others. But yeah, like, there is no real rhyme or reason to this podcast today. It's just literally a little update telling you where I'm at, where the podcast is at. And, I really want to try and create a community where we can talk to one another. Like, you guys are as important as the guests, because without you guys, it wouldn't be reaching anybody. There would be no feedback to if this is making a difference into people's lives, which hopefully it is. And yeah, I just sort of, I hit this point where, and I suppose everyone has it in any sort of avenue that they go down when they're chasing something. And again, I'm trying to be as like open and honest and not just waffle shit, which I probably am doing. Is I think you hit these stages where you think that, should this continue? Is this good enough? And then sort of having like the TV studio and the degree of setup that I've had over the last few months, and then not to have it, which is no complaint whatsoever. I'm eternally grateful and super lucky to even have the opportunity at such an early stage to use a studio like that, because I'm a nobody. I'm not a known personality. I'm not someone with big reach or big pull. And the studio in which I was using is incredible, as you guys will have seen, and seen the increase in the content and what that has come out. And that, again, a massive thing that I've always talked about, and especially when we've had like psychologists and things on the podcast, is imposter syndrome is a massive thing for me. And I remember filming that first episode with Harry in the studio and just sat there and thinking, fuck, is this it? Is this as good as it can be? Have I peaked? Have I made it? And like, if anything, it motivated me to be like, no, this is what I should be doing. And that can be as like, people be like, oh, this fucking dickhead here. But these like open diary conversations where I just literally pour my brain and my heart out into things, I think it could be something. I think when I've spoken to people and people have actually come up to me and like, I've listened to the podcast, which to this day is still mental. Like, you can see the numbers and you can see the views. And I mean, we're no Modern Wisdom yet. We're no Joe Rogan yet. But when people come up to you and they actually speak to you and they say like, what a difference, and they talk about like snippets of the episode, it's mental. So I think my journey is not sort of getting waylaid and sort of licking the wounds and thinking, oh, just because it's coming back into here and it's remote, that it's less, because it's not, because the content is still the content. It's still up to me to navigate these conversations with people and hopefully provide good content to you guys. But again, the community thing is something that I would love to increase and have you guys have more say and be involved more, without sounding like to beg for comments and engagement and stuff. But let me know what you think. If there's anything that can be better, there's going to be some trolls that probably get in here, and have you made it when you get trolls? Because I've had a few comments. So does that mean you get in there when people give you shit for something? But yeah, I just hope you all like it, and I hope that when we continue, and we'll continue to grow and we'll continue to get better, that there's more of an insight, there's more feedback. Let me know if there's any guests you want, and I'll try my damnedest to get them. We've got connections now, and we've met people who are excellent, and they've got voices in other worlds that I could probably never even get access to without meeting them. And I think now we're sort of like 2 years in, 100 is on the horizon, which is absolutely incredible and mental to see. It's about just dialing down now, and then once we've done 100, it's 200, it's 300. There is no... When I'm sat here and I'm in the chair and I'm talking, there is nothing else that, I'd rather do. It's so good. The change of direction is hopefully a good change of direction. Get the newsletter back, the new rebrand, well more professional, more in line. It doesn't look as maybe as tacky and as corny as it did. It's a lot more crisp, so thank you to Joe to that. But yeah, the guests are going to come, and there might be a few more of these, might be a few more of me talking about different things, where I'm up to, what I'm doing. Other than the podcast, I do have a life. You'll be shocked to know. It might be a boring one, but I do try and implement what people talk to me about and use that. So I'm back training. I'm back in a cut with Danny. Danny's still the coach. Danny Fletch coaching. So yeah, the wheels are moving and there's things going on in the background, but just trying to stay in the mix of things and stay on the forefront, keep the content coming for you guys, and be transparent with you guys, not sort of show this persona and create a persona probably that isn't true to who I am. I still, now, 70 episodes deep, struggle with the imposter syndrome, think, God, am I going to get caught out? Do people not like this? Why aren't people listening? But then you think about the numbers and over the different platforms and services, and if you put that into a room, that would be an incredible number if that was the case. So yeah, reflection, hindsight, and keeping the passion for it. And I think the passion is still definitely there, even to just sit down and be in front of you guys. So pretty much to summarize, we're still here, we're still going. I want to hear from you guys more. I want to be more of a community. I want to be involved and hear what you think, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, whatever that may be. I think it's important for the direction of the podcast that the regular listeners and the people that sit down and listen to my dulcet tones have a say of where they want it to go. I can't always guarantee that I can accommodate or get people on, but I'll try. One of the most difficult parts of this is finding the guests, getting the guests on, trying to not sort of cookie cutter it and just rinse and repeat. If you guys comment and you guys show demand, we can show these people that you want to hear from them, and hopefully I can do a good job and squeeze some information out of them. But yeah, the box room will be back, the studio will be back, and the guests will come. The podcast looks different, but the values, the core, the foundations of it are exactly the same. And I have no plans on changing that. I still want this to be a podcast that is real talk, real growth, and creates a better life for people, however that looks. And I appreciate everyone that's listened, is listening, will listen, subscribes. That's massive. If you are on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, whatever you listen on, please subscribe. Please like the videos, leave a rating. It's beggy, but it helps massively. Subscribe to the Instagram, the TikTok. Check out the website. www.jackmckeenan.co.uk. Everything's on there. Access to the newsletter, which is going to come back, which I'm excited about. Thank you for listening, and thank you for joining me on this journey. It's had its ups and downs, but it's only getting better. Progress isn't linear. There's peaks and troughs, but every peak is higher than the last. So super excited. Still love it. Still motivated. Just excited to see what the future brings with it, and hopefully I can bring you guys along the way and keep making it worthwhile for you. So yeah, check out the description. Drop me a message if you've liked it, if you've hated it. Hopefully you've not hated it. But yeah, sorry for the waffling. But this is me, and hopefully that can provide a bit of insight to the eclectic brain and the madness that goes on to the process of the Average Jacks podcast. I'll see you all very soon. Big love, and keep going for it.